All right, everybody, welcome back to the Stratford Warriors Report podcast. We haven't had it for a couple weeks because we haven't had any games really to talk about. Mother Nature did her best to keep us under, and I don't think you guys want me on here for 40 minutes blabbing by myself, as the guest last week came hoarse just before I talked to him on the phone and I could hardly hear him, so we decided to cancel last week. This week, got a great show, more of the 519 personalities. This gentleman's been on it before, the executive producer and founder of 519 Sports, Darren Stevenson. Darren, welcome back.
Good to see you, Les.
All right. And joining us, the star of the show, even though he was 2 minutes late for the podcast call. You guys have probably seen him around the rink. One of the videographers. He does everything there. Christian and Dylan had nothing but nice things to say about him after they tore him up for about 5 minutes. Welcome to the show, Brandon Bax.
Hey, Les. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks you guys for doing this on another snowy night here in Stratford. I don't know what we're gonna do with this snow. Before we get too deep, guys, I just want to start off with a little bit of thing here and there. The Santa Clarita Flyers, Lady Flyers, tragic accident on Friday of last week. Their van was hit by a snowplow. Driver of the van, one of the fathers of the team, perished. But this team got together. Some of the girls were sent to hospital. None of the players were killed. Team got together. They voted. They wanted to play in the tournament. They ended up winning the tournament, taking home the gold medal. Good on them. And then we got some more devastating news on Monday out of Southern Alberta. The Mustangs, they lost 3 players here. You can see J.J. Wright, Cameron Curso, and Caden Fine. One 17-year-old and 2 18-year-old players died on their way to practice. You guys know as well as I do, being in this junior hockey league, this is the worst of the worst that you can have happen for any team. You know, big hockey community. Let them lean on us for a while. We'll hold them up. But just being part of junior hockey, it's nice that we take the bus, the safety of the bus, but other teams don't, and there's still young teams that carpool it, so this can always happen. So we want to send our thoughts and condolences out there, gentlemen.
Absolutely, Les. I remember, I think it was one of the first years we started doing videos and stuff for 519. It was the horrible Humboldt crash, and every team around the league, they had all the ceremonies kind of honoring the team and the kids and everything. I just remember how emotional that was, and maybe we can do something similar for these kids out in Alberta. Just horrible, tragic accident.
Yeah, they had a moment of silence for the Calgary game the other night and in Edmonton last night. So, and there was a bunch of others around the league, I guess, did it too. They're down in Colorado and all that. So, here we are. We're February, guys. It's February. Month number 6 of the regular season, the final month of the regular season. It's been a grind in this Western Conference. I'm just going to go through the previous games for the Warriors, the last 3 games. Over in London last Wednesday, a 3-2 loss to the London Nationals. That was a 60-minute playoff type game. It was tight. It got a little silly near the end. Some things happened, and Will Coward for Stratford got the 2-game suspension for the late check. It looked like a playoff preview. It could be a playoff preview with them sitting 4th and 5th, but we'll have to see. The stars of that game, Aaron Green, Drew Hodge, and Will Coward, just a defensive effort by them, even though 5 seconds left in the game, he got the exit, but they're teenagers, right? You can't really, it's hard to deal with. Teenagers sometimes see red and they don't mean to make the hit, and it happens in hockey. Then Saturday night in Kamoka, Stratford with the 5-1 win. It was a completely different game from the last time we were in Kamoka. There was no emotional letdown from the night before, so Stratford really dominated this game. Kamoka, they were only playing with I think they had 10 forwards that night. So they were a little shorthanded. They had traded a bunch of their players away still. And that 3 stars of that game, Jackson Broda, another dominant game. Dominic Marshall, he had another solid game. He had a goal there, and Jonas Schmidt just keeps rolling along this year. Then the big game Sunday afternoon, Brandon was there. 5-2 final for Elmira over Stratford, but really the score really didn't reflect that game. It was a much closer game for the first 2 periods, I would say. Stratford, they were going back and forth. It was a nice sized crowd there on a Sunday afternoon. we didn't know what the jerseys meant till after the game. Or we would have said more because Elmira came out in the red, white, and blue jerseys, and we were all kind of confused up there. But it goes on from there. 3 stars for that game. Lucas Bernard with a goal. Aaron Green with another great game, and Jackson Broda, just solid on the defense for the Warriors. Also, this past weekend, Max Wildfong, Quinn Kiffer back at the St. Andrew, the McPherson tournament at St. Andrews College, picked up the bronze medal. Quinn was able to make it halfway through the Warriors game Sunday afternoon, so we had him on the broadcast for a bit. So that was pretty good. He had a good time with that. 3 stars for the week. Aaron Green, Jackson Broda, and Drew Hodge, all defense this week. I just thought they were solid. Jackson Broda he's solid on that back end. A great pickup for the Warriors. Aaron Green stepped up. He had a goal there in London. He hit the crossbar in London. He had a goal against Kamoka on the Saturday night as well. And Drew Hodge has just started to play solid the last couple of games. So there it is for the last 3 games for the Warriors, gentlemen. And now it gets busy. It's going to be
You said Jackson Broda's name there a lot.
Yep. Yes.
And rightly and deservedly so.
I say Jackson Broda's name a lot during the broadcast.
and what an addition he is. Obviously, he played in Stratford a couple of years ago, went on to another opportunity, but we've seen that before with guys. Hunter Nagy comes to mind right away. Obviously, Jonas went on to another opportunity. And I think what that shows a little bit of is the passion and loyalty that these guys have for Stratford. And Jackson's back, obviously, and I had a chance to chat with him at the Almond a couple of weeks ago and was saying he loves it here and happy to be back. And obviously, they have a good team again this year, which is no stranger for Stratford. Stratford always seems to find a way to be there deep into the playoffs and, go on runs. I remember the mid-2000s, it felt like it was Stratford every single year, and no matter what they look like at the beginning of the season, at the end of the season, they were always right in the conversation. And I think at the addition of Jackson Broda coming back to the team, you mentioned him a lot there, not because he can skate down the ice. Like, he's got the wheels, he can go and be offensive, but Stratford's going to win because they play defensive, and having a guy like Broda back there, loving playing in Stratford again, that's just only a bonus. It really is for the Warriors. We'll see what the playoffs ends up looking like. You said it there. It looks like it's going to be a London Stratford first round series. Now it's a matter of who has home ice advantage in that series. And I think that's why when you were in London last week, it felt like that playoff game. Both teams kind of trying to set that temperature early. Yep. If we meet the first round, it's going to be tight. But a guy like Jackson Broda, his name, won't always be on the score sheet, obviously, but he can be an impact player in a series like that, especially with the guns that they got Austin Pomerleau that can put the puck in the net. London has no shortage of offense. So we'll see how it all plays out over the next month, like you said. But, good to see Broda back and good to see him playing well for sure.
Yeah, he's got 9 points in 10 games, Darren. He's playing really well with Joe Curtin. I think he likes playing with him. I asked him a few weeks ago if he liked playing with him. He said he loved playing with Curtin. So, I think that's going to be a great pairing for them for sure.
Yeah. I've had a few talks with Jackson. I did an interview for the broadcast, and I asked him, what precipitated the move back to Stratford. He said, well, he gets to sleep in his own bed every night, which is a big thing because he's from Wellesley. But he said the room up in Trenton just wasn't the same as it was last year when they won the national championship. And you can get that when you have so much turnover year after year in junior hockey. But I find with Broda, he just sees the ice so well. Mm-hmm. And he can control the middle of the ice and in front of the net. He's not a slouch. He's not afraid to take a hit. He's not afraid to make a hit. He's just a quarterback back there, and that's what Stratford needed, really.
I think there's an atmosphere piece to that too, Les, where we get into, obviously, Stratford. Everybody knows what it's like on Friday night at 7:30, but you go to Elmira on a Sunday afternoon. Those are the fun games. I know the Warriors lost 5-2. I get it. But at the end of the day, there's a big crowd. The Elmira fans are always into it. The old Midwest games always seem to kind of climb that temperature, whether it's Stratford Listowel, Stratford Elmira, Stratford Cambridge even, right? There's a lot of energy in these buildings. And I think sometimes when guys head off to other opportunities, I think they look back and say, man, I had it pretty good where I was, right? And, you can get to other opportunities, whether it's OHL now with the OHL Development League or the NCAA. You can get to tons of opportunities through playing in the GOHL. And some guys don't come back, and they obviously find their right fit elsewhere. But sometimes I look back and I say, man, you know what we've got is pretty darn good in terms of the teams, the atmosphere, the arenas that we've got in our league, and specifically in the Western Conference.
Yeah. The Western Conference, you just see it more like, being a Stratford guy, I always hear doing the broadcast for the Warriors, you don't go to a lot of rinks where you're getting 800 to 1,000 fans on a Friday every game. And the more you get into the big teams this weekend should be it's a wild weekend because you got the new rivalry with Chatham, from that 7-game series last year that we went deep, and Cruz Ferguson now on the Warriors as well. So there's a bit of him wanting to, show up his other team and all that. And then one of the oldest rivalries from the old Midwest, the Waterloo Siskins, in on the Saturday night. And then I think you have one of the best rivalries that's really bubbling. And if these two teams, Stratford and St. Mary's, ever meet in the playoffs, there won't be an empty seat in either building for those games.
We could see it this year. We could see it if Stratford can take care of business maybe in round 1 there. We could see it at Stratford, St. Mary's, or Stratford Elmira, depending on how that kind of shakes out in the West there. But this weekend's going to be very exciting. I know me and Darren are going to be at most of those games in Stratford. It's going to be a lot of fun at the Almond this weekend.
Yeah. Well, I'm just going to sleep in the press box, I think. And
you might as well stay there the whole weekend.
Yeah.
You, Vince, and the General just hanging out in the press box at the Almond.
Yeah.
I think about this weekend's games too, and I look at them. You look at the opponents that you guys have. Chatham's fighting for first place. Them and St. Mary's are battling. So this game means a lot to Chatham. Waterloo, I think, is in 7th now. They're not totally solidified in the playoff spot. And you're right. You remember going back to the old Waterloo Stratford days. Like, it was the rivalry. It was the one everybody buzzed and talked about. And there was nothing quite like the Siskins going into the Almond on a Friday night. In this case, it's Saturday night. But the Siskins need to win too. So we look at Stratford and we say, okay, obviously their focus right now probably is on getting home ice and 6 big points on the line. It's also good to get tested against teams that are also battling for positioning as well. This is the playoff positioning, jockeying time of year. And you've got 3 opponents that want it just as bad as you do. And what that means is entertainment for the fans. Bottom line.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
4 points separate those teams at the bottom there, Darren. 4 points between 6th and 9th. And the Siskins are right in the middle of that. So, it's going to be great. It's going to be awesome.
And I'll tell you, Listowell's coming up too. Listowell's played the last couple of weeks. They found a little bit of zip in their step. And, I don't know. They got veteran guys over there with Jack O'Donnell and Aidan Renault and those guys. Ethan Kawach is a great goaltender. They kind of put themselves behind the 8 ball a little bit, a couple of months ago. But, I don't want to say look out for Listowell, but if they
count them out,
that's it. If they keep playing the way that they're playing, who knows? Listowell could become part of the conversation really easily.
Yeah. Yeah. And a big thing this weekend, Stratford also gets 2 bodies back in the lineup in Quinn Kiffer and Max Wildfong that they missed last weekend. Those are 2 big cogs for this team, especially Quinn Kiffer. This team, I think, a lot of the time goes the way Quinn Kiffer goes. He's a guy that can turn a game just by himself out there. And Max Wildfong, you missed that shot from the circle on the power play. But what we saw Sunday from the Warriors, I think, is the old before Christmas thing where we can play with the team. We just couldn't outscore the team.
Well, that's what I was going to say, Les, because that's the game that I was at. And I found that Stratford probably deserved a little bit better in that game. Elmira capitalized on all their chances, but Stratford outshot them, I think, by 10 or 12 shots. Like, they were all over them at some points in that game. If they had a Kipfer or a Wildfong in the lineup that night, maybe a couple of those go in. Maybe that's a 5-4 game instead of a 5-2 game. It could have been completely different, but it was still a really good game and a test that kind of shows Stratford can play with some of the big teams if they have all the scoring in the lineup.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out to Colton Brenzel. He had a goal there Saturday night, his first GOHL goal playing with the Warriors. Sunday, he goes into Elmira. He takes a hit along the boards, and now he's out probably for a couple of weeks or more with a upper body injury. So, Mitchell's going to lose him a bit for that, but hopefully he'll get back on the ice before the season, because more than likely, if Mitchell doesn't go deep in the playoffs, he'll revert to one of the Black Aces for the Warriors. He is a talented young man who's having a great season in Mitchell.
Shout out Mitchell as well, Brandon's
Yes.
hometown.
Shout out Mitchell Hawks. Shout out Colton. I honestly, I noticed him on Sunday in the first period before he got the hit. I noticed him out there. He was playing well. It's unfortunate bounce for him, but
they got that old Colton's coaching staff in Mitchell too. So, you can't go wrong there with Schultz, Lormer, and Ronnie White. There's Ronnie White, man. I remember watching him as a kid, and the puck was never on his stick very long before it was in the net. He was just a guy that had a boomer of a shot from the circle.
Sort of
they're tough in that division.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Like Max Wildfong, is that what you're saying, Les?
Yes, sort of like Max Wildfong.
Let me talk for a second, if I may, just about the McPherson tournament. I had the opportunity, obviously, to be there through my role with the league over the weekend to do what ended up being 5 games, to specifically speak about Quinn Kipfer that you mentioned there a minute ago, where you say, well, the Warriors go as Quinn Kipfer goes. This is a young man who was the captain of this team for the second year in a row. He exudes class, honestly, on and off the ice, good leader. You could see obviously some of those leadership skills. We got to remember that this is a U18 team that is going to the McPherson each year at St. Andrews and Aurora. And Quinn was the only returning player, the only second-year player on the roster. Got a couple of big goals. And Sunday was awesome. And the whole weekend was great. And, credit to Tim Simmons and the GOHL and everybody that was involved in, putting all of that together, and the meals and the buses and everything that went on. But to walk away with a bronze medal from that, and the best part of the whole story was the GOHL played Pittsburgh earlier in the tournament in their first game. They deserve to win. And I don't say that as a representative of the GOJHL or GOHL. They deserve to win that game. And that happens sometimes where it gets away from me a little bit. And that's what happened. And it was kind of neat that it came full circle at the end, that they ended up getting a bronze medal and beating Pittsburgh. And if Quinn Kipfer sees this or can hear this, I want him to know that he was an outstanding leader. He led by example. He did a great job, and congratulations to the boys that were there. I know they had a good experience. Obviously, there was a lot of scouts and a lot of eyeballs on them over the course of the weekend, but what a great event, sort of all led by Quinn and Nick Pissarro from Fort Erie, who was the head coach. Matt Doyle from the Waterloo Siskins was an assistant. Steve Santos from Welland was an assistant, and they did a really good job of pulling a team together in a really short period of time. You have to remember all these other teams, St. Andrews and Culver and Brunswick, they've played together all season long. We basically select a roster of U18 players and throw them all together, have one practice, and say, okay, boys, go play hockey.
Yeah.
What a credit to that group of kids that they were able to come together that quickly and be able to win a bronze medal. And if you go watch some of the highlights of the interviews from after the game, they were on cloud 9.
Oh, yeah.
They were over the moon. And it's so cool that Quinn was able to drive back to Stratford that quickly. Luckily, the roads coming out of Aurora were pretty good on Sunday.
Yeah, into Elmira, because we had talked about. We had talked about. They said Quinn said if they're in the 9 o'clock game, his dad will have them in Elmira ready and dressed before 2 p.m.
Yeah.
And I wouldn't doubt it, because it happened. I think it was last year, the same thing. Quinn, they played the 9 o'clock game, and they made it to the game. We played in Elmira actually on the Sunday again last year, and they made it there. Quinn said that Pittsburgh team, we faced them in the Pelfreyman tournament at the beginning of the year, and he said they're a much better team than they were then. You could see they've played together all year.
Yep.
And he said they're not little kids; they're big boys out there on the ice too. He said there's one defenseman out there. He said he's looking up to him all game. He's just big
another example of that too. So Steve Santos, I think we got out of there at, I don't know what time it was, 2:15-ish. Well, Santos went right back to Welland because his team, the Junior Canadians, played at 7 o'clock that night.
Yeah.
And we had all been up obviously pretty early to get on the bus and grab breakfast at the hotel and whatever else. And it was a long weekend, I guess, from that regard. But everybody knew that going in, and it was fun. It was great for everybody. It was good exposure for the league, obviously, and good exposure for the players. And that's really what it's about, is just getting their names and faces and abilities out there. And those kids did a great job.
Yeah, it's great exposure for the kids. My only concern is the time of year it falls in, right? You're getting down to this crunch time in the GO, and it's kind of hard. You're missing, but it wasn't just us that were missing players. Elmira, their best defenseman, Nutting, was not there. He was on that team as well, and all the other teams deal with it as well. So it's not unfair to any one team, really. We know what's going to happen. It's just dealing with it at the time. And Stratford was able to bring in two players in Brunzell and Billings for the Friday night game. Cody Billings did not look out of place whatsoever Friday night playing defense for the Warriors as a U16 player out of Kitchener. He played very well and, did what he had to do. You had to do this because probably one of Stratford's best defensemen, Will Coward, was serving his 2-game suspension. And that might have led into the Sunday game, because the last time we played Elmira, Will Coward and I forget who his partner was that night, but they were just all over the Maury line that whole game in Stratford when Stratford beat them 3-1. And he was just under their skin. And you just see, you take a defenseman like that out of your lineup and it just sort of throws everything into a little bit of turmoil. But you deal with it and you move on.
As long as you get them in the lineup for the playoffs, and when the games are real big, that's when it really matters, right?
Yeah, and that's it. You want everybody healthy for the playoffs.
Allow me to shout out Kyle Morey. I apologize for doing this on the Stratford Warriors report.
That's okay. Kyle Morey is one heck of a hockey player.
Brandon and I have been around Kyle Morey since he played for the U16 Kitchener Junior AAA Rangers. Brandon, I couldn't even guess what year that was. It wasn't recently. Point being is that this week he committed to the University of Waterloo to play hockey in the OUA with the Warriors. So congratulations to Kyle. Obviously, he was in St. Mary's, had a good year in St. Mary's, comes closer to home. He's a Kitchener guy who obviously played a little bit with, the OHL Rangers, and now he's in Elmira, and who knows what Elmira could do here too, right? We're going to talk a lot about Chatham and St. Mary's, but do not overlook the Elmira Sugar Kings or really any of the top six. You just don't know what's going to happen. But anyways, point is, congratulations, Kyle Morey. Good for him. Another kid going on to a great opportunity at the University of Waterloo with Brian Burke, who's been the coach there for 15 years. A couple other Sugar Kings guys went through there. Zach Coulter, Jeremy Goodwin went through there. That's, going back a few years now. But, good for Kyle. Good player, good kid. Happy for him.
Yeah. A lot of things in the Western Conference, Darren, with Jason been talking to Jason Clark and that, we call it the Wild Wild West, because ever since the realignment, there's been nothing but fantastic things happening in the Western. The Eastern Conference is the same. I think it's because I see the West more than I see the East. Like when I look at the East, I look at probably just the scores. I really don't see what's juggling around. But in the West, you just see it, like we've said, 1-5. It's a crapshoot still for where these teams are going to place, and then 6th to 9th, really down at the bottom, and even with Listowel coming as well, up there at the bottom. What do you figure, Darren, this last month is going to be like in this Western Conference?
The Wild Wild West. The Wild West. You know what? I think the thing that I enjoy about the league is when two of the good teams or quality teams, or however you want to put it, get together. You just have no idea what's going to happen. And we're talking about this weekend. Look in the mirror right now, and you're hoping obviously the Warriors get 6 points and go 3 for 3. So is Dave Williams and Nick Parr and Jason Clark. But you just don't know. And I think that's what makes the final month of the regular season fun, right? Yeah. It looks like the 4-5 matchups in both conferences are relatively set, with Stratford and London in the West, and then Port Colborne and Pelham in the East. And historically, and you know this, Les, that the 4-5 matchup has always been really good. It's been really tight. We sometimes see, lopsided series in the first round. And, I do think the realignment has altered that a little bit, where like Waterloo gave St. Mary's a heck of a run in the first round last year. And I know it was only a 5-game series.
Every game was a 1-goal game.
I think they were all overtime, weren't they, Brandon?
They were something like that. They were all very close games, that series. Yep.
I remember Ben Oliver scored an overtime at the Rec Complex in Game 4 to keep the systems alive.
Nolan Chartrand stood on his head almost every night.
Right?
Yeah.
So
and you got to remember, Brantford took out Air last year.
Brantford took out Air last
2-7 series. That was a 2-7 series, I'm pretty sure.
That was 2-7. And, you know, anything like I'm just going to keep saying this all year. Anything's going to happen in these playoffs, but you always get I think your better series are always your 3-6 and your 4-5, just because they're tighter. The teams are a little tighter together in those middle pack.
I think the second round is really where you get into it.
Yeah.
Right. Like, let's say hypothetically, let me look at the standings. Let's say hypothetically, purely hypothetically, that the top 4 teams in the East win their first round series. That triggers a Cambridge Pelham second round series and a St. Catharines Fort Erie.
Yeah. That St. Catharines Fort Erie would be
and they've played the last at least 2 years, maybe 3. And those 2 teams, they're 2 defensive teams. Pissarro from Fort Erie and Tyler Bilby from St. Catharines have really great defensive systems. They have buy-in from the players. And I think a lot of people around Christmas time, when Fort Erie lost Finn Moffat, their goaltender, who was outstanding the first half of the season, thought, oh boy, they've just lost their top dog goaltender. Oh, Raphael Tremblay comes in. And
from Gatineau,
he just doesn't lose.
And he just doesn't lose.
He's lost 1 game.
He's lost 1 game at Galt Arena Gardens last Saturday night against Cambridge. And I do feel like in that game a little bit, Cambridge kind of owed them one because Fort Erie had beat them 3 times previously. So, Raphael Tremblay comes in, shuts the door, and here we are, right? And he's been one of the best goaltenders in the league since he showed up. So, as well as I do, Les, that it's so hard to kind of break. We can sit here for 15 hours and try and break down what we think is going to happen. And I know you did it with Dylan Baker and Christian Simmons before, but that's why I think everybody enjoys what they do in their job in whatever capacity that is, whether it's Brandon is the videographer or me as the videographer or Dylan is the announcer or Christian is a Mr. Everything kind of guy who does a lot of different things for us, that you just don't know. And when you look at the playoff matchups in the second round, if you can't get excited about the second round playoff matchups, you don't have a pulse. You really don't.
Talking about Fort Erie right now, Stratford Rockets are up 2-0. 5 minutes left in the first in Fort Erie tonight. I didn't know there was crossover games this late in the year. That's another one of my pet peeves is the crossover late in the year. It's, you want more conference games at this time of the year, I think, but it is what it is. Strathroyd's another team that's coming. LaSalle's up 2-0, and Nationals are up 3-1 at St. Thomas Stars. St. Thomas might be that team, I think, that's going to be the Cinderella team. They could be the Cinderella team in the West. They got the goaltending. Very well-coached team. Solid team. And kids that just don't know any better. They're not afraid to lose, but they just keep winning.
Jason Williams has put a good structure in there as well. Obviously, he was in Strathroy last year as the head coach of the Rockets and went over to St. Thomas for this season. He's cool. He's level-headed. He's got his systems. He also is a minor hockey instructor. So he's got that temperament where he's teaching, right? And I think it's made a difference for the Stars this year. I really genuinely do. And we'll see. They've had some ups and downs, right? They've had some kind of high points. And then, I'm also interested to see how Miles Dunn comes back from the McPherson tournament. He scored some clutch goals. He scored an overtime goal that basically kept the GOHL alive for a semifinal game. That was on Friday afternoon. Dunn, it was a beautiful goal. Alex Forrest was in on it from Cambridge, and Dunn ended up scoring it. And then he scored another one and was the player of the game later in the tournament. And it's all confidence. It's all belief. Here's the thing. You guys know this. We've all been around this forever. They are good hockey players. They know how to play the game. It's all here.
Yep.
And if you have confidence and you have belief, and a goaltender can put a team on his back.
Yeah.
Miles Dunn could go on a huge hot streak. Raphael Tremblay comes in Fort Erie and is incredible, right? And it's really, to me, they're all good hockey players. It comes down to who wants it more. And in St. Thomas, Jason's done a really, really nice job. He's involved in different league events as well. He's done a nice job kind of molding that team into kind of where he wants to get it to. And at the end of the day, the season doesn't even start till after the trade deadline anyways. Every year.
Yep. 100%. It's just, Brandon, you're really back into the hockey side of it now. I bugged Darren in the last podcast when I get to see Brandon. Now I see you a lot. You guys see a lot of hockey. You see a lot more than I do. I know I'm busy with the team a lot of night. Like, we just came through a couple weeks where it really wasn't busy because Mother Nature decided to play havoc with you. And you coming out of Mitchell, you know how the roads are like around this area.
If he got out of Mitchell, you should say.
The roads are open. I'll be there.
Yeah. I'm sure. I'm sure we talked the one night in Stratford where the road wasn't open, but he was there anyways because, like myself, you know those back roads that you can take and the back roads that you can't take in this area.
Yeah.
A couple of our players have found out about that too. Dax Vader's found out that there's one road he should not take when it's snowing. Almost didn't make it to St. Thomas one day for the game, but then other than that, it's all good. What do you see coming up, Brandon?
You're talking about the last month of the season. I'm going to see a lot of every day you open up the standings page. It's going to be something different in the top four of the West. You know, there's going to be so much different movement between these top teams. One day Chatham will be on top, one day St. Mary's, one day Elmira. Who knows how it's going to kind of, fizzle out in the end. But like that 1-2 spot is so important in the West because I think you want to have that home ice as long as possible in the West.
Yeah.
In my opinion, that's going to be very important in that second round series. And even in a potential final series for someone, you're going to want to be able to be up as high as you can so that you can play some of these teams a little later in the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
So that's why every night's going to be so important for these guys.
Yeah, I think you really only have to look back to last year's playoffs and see what Chatham did. They got through the first round. They got past us in 7 games in the second round. And then they went up against St. Mary's, and everybody said, oh, St. Mary's, Chatham had a tough round, blah, blah. But that was probably one of the best series we've seen in a long time in the 519 region. Was that St. Mary's?
You look at a team like Chatham
series.
It's almost like you can go through the season and the coaching staff is trying to get you to play a certain way, and they're building to be able to play a certain way in the playoffs in a big series against St. Mary's. And they were able to do that in a series against St. Mary's when it mattered the most, when everybody thought, oh, St. Mary's will win this in 5. Maybe they'll win it in 6. Well, I mean, look, Chatham ended up winning. They won the whole thing. Yeah. So
it's one on the road. And one on the road in Game 7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yep.
Really
hostile
tough
environment.
It was a very hostile environment in St. Mary's that night. That place was packed. We were there. That place was just packed. Wild. I call Chatham the hostile environment where, the Warriors, that's our final game of the year. We traveled to Chatham on a Sunday night for the last regular season game of the year. And, there could be playoff content. That could really mean something coming down to that last game.
Well, we just had a game scheduled, I think, for the last week of the season. We've got a Chatham-Elmira game for the last Wednesday of the season, and then you guys playing Chatham on the last Sunday of the season. That could be, those 2 points from those games could be the difference in where people finish first, second, third, fourth, right?
Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at now going into March.
Yeah, because you guys know once we get to the playoffs, you're not going to see these 7-1, these 8-1, these
it'll tighten
6-1 games. You're going to see a typical, if I can just say it, a Stratford game where you're 3-2, 4-2. Stratford, we're not a highly offensive team. Well, after Christmas, we found the net quite a bit, but we did play some lower ranked teams there. But Stratford's always been a defensive team, low goals against and all that. Noah Benders looked a lot better after Christmas than he did before Christmas. Had a little trouble there a couple times, but it is what it is. Goalies are a weird fraternity.
Well, we've talked on your show, I think, a few times about Noah this year, Les. And me and Darren, we got to cover him in the Schmaltz Cup a couple years back. And Noah knows how to play in the playoffs and the big games. He shows up for his team. He's a very good goalie. I think he was always going to figure it out at some point. Yeah. So he's going to turn it on here, I think.
And the thing I like about Church on the back is I don't think you're really afraid to go to him if you have to. He's shown he can play. He's let in the odd weak goal here and there, but what goal he hasn't, right? It's junior hockey, right? But he's really been able to play and settle things down. And that's what we're going to see in the playoffs.
Yeah, I wonder about Stratford if they just go with Noah every game. It's different from St. Mary's where they have the three guys. They might have to rotate through a little bit, but or maybe they just go with the hot hand. Sometimes coaches do that in the playoffs too. They just go with whoever's playing best at that time. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see who ends up playing most of the games for these teams.
Yeah.
The Wellesley Applejacks, Brandon will know this, went into the Smalls Cup in Woodstock as like heavy underdogs. Fair?
Yep.
It was
probably the lowest ranked team of the teams that were there, I would assume.
Right. Yeah. And it was Stayner, Clarington, and Lakeshore and Wellesley in the tournament. And no, Wellesley's not going to do anything. They're good for them to get there. And who is the tournament MVP at the end? Noah Bender.
Yeah.
And on the big stage, when the Wellesley Applejacks, and they had a bit of why not us in them that weekend, with Isaiah Katsubi and Carson Wickie scored a big wraparound goal, and Connor Dorbecker scored the eventual Smalls Cup winning goal. Noah Bender was one of the main reasons, his play, his composure, and now he spent time in the OHL, right? So, yeah, I don't see any reason why Noah Bender can't be the Noah Bender that I've seen from the kid over the last 4 years. He knows how to play on the big stage in the big moments, and he's got a big frame, right? And that's one of the things about Noah. Like, he's got the size, and when I look at Noah Bender, I just think quality goaltender, good guy, has the experience, has been in those situations before, and he's not going to be afraid to go into St. Mary's or Chatham or whatever other, crazy road rink that the Stratford
Elmira potentially round 2, right? Like, he's played there a few times now this season, right? So
totally.
The goaltending in this league. You talk about St. Mary's with the 3 goaltenders. I talked to Jeff Bradley the last time they were in town, and they had just made the trade. And I've been watching them closely. They really can't go wrong with any 3 of those kids in net. At this point, they've been just rotating through all 3. Von Barr is a great goaltender, young goaltender. So he's either got a lot of time left in this league or he's going to move on. Brogan Calhoun played with the Essex 73s last year down there, and he played very well on that. He's played well all year. But to get a guy like Kobe Buthusko back, you can't really say no. He gets put on waivers. St. Mary's is like, well, at the time, I know there was a bit of decision why they had to make the deal, and they made it. And kudos to them, though, pick up a guy like that, because if he would have been a free agent any longer, somebody else might have snapped him up, and you never know, because we've seen a couple free agent signings happen already. Caledonia looks like they've turned things around in the East the last little bit, but we'll have to see with that.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with Colby. I mean, you're right. If he was a free agent much longer, someone else is going to take him. It was a no-brainer for St. Mary's. He's a fan favorite there. He's an electric goalie that makes outstanding highlight reel saves almost every game, because I do a lot of their games, and he is always making big-time saves. And Brogan, steady as a rock back there. I remember actually when he was with Essex last year, they played New Hamburg in the Schmaltz Cup semifinals, I want to say it was. And he knocked out New Hamburg, a very good team with a lot of really good players, and he was a big reason for that. And he's a good goalie in this league as well. And obviously Barr has been great too. So they can't go wrong with any of them. But yeah, we'll see who they end up starting, I guess, in the playoffs.
Chatham's picked up a couple more bodies. They got Dylan Richter back from injury. That's a big addition back to Chatham. Chatham's a very well-coached team as well. Brandon Feesy's done a great job there in Chatham again this year. And that'll be a tough team into the playoffs, because they are built like a playoff team. They got the speed, they got the size, they got the goaltending. And
They
then
remind me a lot of what the team was last year, eh, Darren?
Yeah.
Like just so many good depth pieces, playoff performers, guys that still really want to win in this league and know how to win in this league, right?
And have the experience now.
Yep.
They know what it takes to get through those tough games in St. Mary's. And I'm going to tell you, winning a game in St. Catharines ain't easy.
Yeah.
At any point of the year, Bilby's got the structure, and you know it's not easy to go into that rink and get a win. So you know, it's so funny. Like, we can sit here and just talk about all the different teams. I'm kind of interested to see what happens in the East, though, too, right?
Yeah.
Between Cambridge and Fort Erie and St. Catharines. And I'm not going to sit here and discount anybody else either, because like you said, Les, you know, a little while ago, Brantford beat Ayr in the first round last year. But it does look like those are the three top teams. And if it kind of stays that way, can you imagine a Cambridge Fort Erie Eastern Conference final?
Yeah.
It would be electric.
The
fans would eat it up.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Like, there was 1,000 people at Galt Arena last Saturday night for a regular season game. And I get it's Fort Erie. I totally get that that's become a little bit of a rivalry just because of, like, you know, where they are in the standings this year. You know, there's a little bit of chirping online because, I don't know, people chirp online for some reason. So
Keyboard Cowboys.
Keyboard heroes. Yeah.
Yeah.
They message 519 sometimes too. I just ignore them.
I could see delete.
Cambridge.
But even seeing in the second round a Fort Erie St. Catharines second round, if that were to happen, it would be electric. And don't discount, maybe, like we said, if it's the top four, Cambridge and Pelham, that's offense versus defense. And Pelham has two great goalies as well. Like, those are going to be low scoring games.
Yeah.
So those could be two fantastic series.
Those second round series, you could have a set of teams, like you could have maybe St. Mary's and Stratford playing, or St. Mary's and Elmira, St. Mary's and Chatham playing in the second round, and the other two teams that are playing might think, well, they could just beat the living heck out of each other. We can get through our series maybe a little unscathed, but it'll be a tough series again.
Tough, yeah.
You know, I think it's going to be this playoff is going to look a little different than last year. It might be a sign of attrition coming out of these playoffs, because there's so much closeness between the top teams. Everybody's going to be battling. Like, you're playing playoffs right now is what you're playing. Playoff hockey. We talk about Stratford, 3 games and 3 nights this weekend, next weekend, the weekend after. Well, we're ready for playoff hockey then, you know, because you're playing 3-4 games a week, 5 games a week, right?
Give us some series. Give us some 6 and 7 game series. It's gonna be amazing.
You say that now until those games are on the same night, and you're trying to schedule the videographers, Brandon.
Yeah.
What you don't know, Les, is that Brandon does our scheduling now for 5.
Well, I knew that because Dylan and Christian, they chirped him pretty good on the podcast when he wasn't.
I bet they did.
But yeah, right. Also, just so you know, Les, once the playoffs start, Brandon and I are not available to join the Stratford Warriors report. We're going to be driving across the province pretty much every night.
we're going to do a playoff preview right before the playoffs start.
Nice.
Dylan's going to come on, and Christian's going to try and find somebody from the East to come on with him, because he thought we ganged up on him a lot, which we did. But and Christian said, it was funny at the end of the podcast. Christian said, "Are we going to make predictions?" I said, "No, we don't do that." Because you don't want to, as Darren Stevenson would say, you don't want to give somebody whiteboard material. And then I just bluntly said to Christian, I said, "This is the Warriors podcast, so it's the Warriors all the way, no matter what." Right. He goes, "Okay, I know the rules now." So,
yeah, there will be no predictions on 519 Sports, and I'm glad that you mentioned to Christian as that was coming up. I did watch that piece of the segment that you guys did, and I appreciate you, Les, having Christian not make predictions on hockey in the playoffs. That's good. I like that. Again,
and it was funny because we had talked about the Stratford Elmira game, because it was that weekend, and I said, you know, somebody said to me Midwest is best, and Dylan right away goes, "I know who that was." He knew exactly who it was right away.
I've said that once or twice in my life.
Yeah. So Brandon, you've been with 519 Sports for quite a long time now, right back to the early days.
2018. Yeah. Yep.
So is he your right or left hand man there, Darren?
He is everything a lot of the time. Yeah. He is both hands. No, I honestly, Les, I cannot do what we do on a daily, weekly basis without Brandon and without the support that he provides me. So we first met. I don't know how down memory lane we want to go here, but Brandon and I first met at the TV station. And obviously, I was doing the sports news and doing the reporting stuff. And Brandon, and I couldn't even tell you what year it was, 2013,
2014.
2014. Brandon gets hired at the TV station. And obviously, we connected a little bit just because of one, we're both Leaf fans. And two, the sports.
It sucks being a Leaf fan right now. Well, it's okay right now.
It's been this for 25 years.
Yeah.
So anyways, long story short, is basically Brandon and I kind of connected right away when he started the TV station, just because we had common links in sports, and he was often out doing the games then, even at night for the TV station. And then obviously when my situation changed in March of 2017 and I was no longer there, Brandon was still there, but I always kind of knew in my head that if 519 Sports was going to be successful, that Brandon was somebody that I would want to bring along the ride with me, just because we had built a pretty good connection. And the one thing I've learned about him, like at the time, it was just he's a really good shooter. He knows sports, he knows local sports and community sports, and he's somebody that could be a real asset for us. What's ultimately ended up happening in the evolution of all of this is that he has his hand in everything, right? And he helps with the scheduling, and he does hours, and he does timesheets. Yeah, he coordinates the employee side of stuff, and where we've gotten to, I can't do it myself. And we probably talk 2 or 3 times a day, and it could be just a 2-minute phone call. It could be 30 minutes. I'll be honest with you. I was lucky enough to be the MC at his wedding 3 years ago. Is that right? 4 years ago?
Four on April 2nd.
4 on April 2nd. I'm glad you remember that date. That's good. Your wife likes that. But yeah, like I was lucky enough to be the MC at his wedding, and it's just kind of evolved from 2 guys working together at the TV station to now 2 guys that are working together to try and build something forever, and give teams and players and leagues and whatever the best we got, to give them a positive spotlight and give them something that they can remember. It's a keepsake. It's a memory. You know as well as I do, the night that you guys hoisted the Cherry Cup with Zach McCann in his last year, that video now exists forever. And Sheldon Price and Cam Daigle and on and on we can go. That to me is the cool part in all of this, that stuff exists. And I can go watch the Wellesley Championship game from the PJHL Smalls Cup in Woodstock right now. But without Brandon, there was no way. And basically, it started out as he was going to do a couple of shifts per month with me, just for a little bit of extra money. And it evolved, and I got more business, and it evolved. And all of a sudden, it was like, okay, Brandon, are you ready? Are you ready to jump? Do you want to try this full time and see how it goes? And here we are. We're both sitting in our houses, so something's going on.
To me, it's an organizational thing too. It's to be able to stay super organized with all the teams, all the leagues, all the different sports that we cover. It could be a lot on each week, so we've got to try and stay on top of it as best we can. Like maybe Stratford sees Stratford stuff and St. Mary's sees St. Mary's, but we have our hands in 50, 60, 70, maybe different teams throughout the year. It's grown to be something quite large. And when Darren says moments like when Stratford is hosting the Cherry Cup, those are the moments that we do it for. When we have conversations in the playoffs every night driving home from whatever game we're doing, we always say, I'm not going to be able to fall asleep for 2 hours because it was so electric that night. Yeah. And that's why we do it. We do it for those moments. We do it for those games. It's so exciting. So,
yeah. Like I said, I always like when Brandon's at the Almond. We'll bring him up on the broadcast in the intermission, because you guys, everybody with 519, you guys see so much hockey. You know what's going around. So, Brandon, how many games do you figure you would see by yourself in a year, any given year?
In a year?
Yeah.
Just
a
I might have to get a calculator out. I don't know.
Yeah. So how many games would you schedule like this week coming up?
Probably around 10. Probably around 10 per week right now. In football season, I do about probably closer to 15, because that football and hockey season together is a beast by itself. Yeah, it depends. People ask me that question a lot. It all depends on the time of year. Right now, it's about 10 games a week. So
yeah, because it was funny in Elmira. I said, Brandon, do you want to come on the podcast? He says, do you have anybody else, or is just? I said, it's just you, which was a lie. But I thought, well, that'll nail him down.
I just went and checked our spreadsheet. So we have a weekly spreadsheet. This week, this current week that we are in right now, 519 Sports is covering 56 games.
Jeez.
Brandon Bax on your television screen is doing 11 of those games, including 4 on Saturday.
4 games on Saturday.
We used to do this by mapping out a week on Darren's calendar on his kitchen table in the first few years of 519 before we even knew how to use Google Calendar or spreadsheets or anything like that. I don't know how we did it back then, but this is way better.
I could just see both of you.
Yeah. You're giving away company secrets, Brandon. What are you doing, man? Come on.
a lot of pencil and eraser, right? Back then.
Yeah.
but we didn't have we also didn't have the bulk of teams that we have now.
We were still very in the infancy then. Yeah.
Right. And honestly, Les, I said this to somebody today when I was talking to a potential sponsor this afternoon. And I said, the thing that I appreciate the most is that these teams, organizations put their trust in us to share their stories in a professional, responsible way.
Yeah.
We are not clickbait, and I will never be clickbait. That's not who I am. That's not what I'm about. Brandon and I both kind of grew up in the mainstream media, or however you want to phrase it. We both went to journalism school and different things. And to me, it's about the presentation of it and treating people right and doing things the right way, and just being honest with people. And to me, that's what I care about the most in all of this, is that it's a good reflection, and it's a moment, and it's a positive moment, whether it's a goal or a touchdown, or it doesn't matter, or an interview, that that team says that's a really good reflection of the game or of our team, right? Because they don't have to put their trust and confidence in us, right? We are partners with all of these teams, whether you're talking about Elmira or Stratford or Ayr or the Cambridge Redhawks. I won't even get into the football. I will not even, there are so many football teams, and every single one of them say, we believe in you guys. And to me, Les, that's the greatest compliment of all, that we have accomplished something that is making a difference in people's lives. But that's not just me. Yes, I'm the executive producer or whatever, and I'm not the face of it as much anymore. Brandon Bax, every day. Christian Simmons has become an invaluable asset for us. He does a great job of both the videography side, the announcing side. Dylan Baker, Max Purdon, Caleb Sebastian, Griffin Harris. I feel like I'm giving my Emmy award-winning speech.
And Christian did say, you told him he needs to get a haircut, and I said that would be better for him. He might not look like Dylan Baker so much, but
but legit, I can't do it with all of these amazing people around me that support the idea and the concept. And at the end of the day, we aren't saving lives.
Yeah.
We're covering sports.
That's
we're
right.
Going to games, and we're having a blast doing it. And we're just going to keep going. And I hope that we can get more teams and ultimately just be able to just keep doing what we both love. And I think the one thing that Brandon and I have in common is the passion for what we do, right? I don't have $1 million. And if Brandon has $1 million, and he didn't tell me about it. So at the end of the day, we do it for the love of the game in a sense. And we're, obviously things are good and everything's moving in the right direction. It's always a work in progress when you're running your own business. But I never thought 9 or 10 years ago that Brandon Bax and I would essentially be business partners running a platform off YouTube and Instagram. Here we are, baby.
Yeah. And it's always funny because we'll sit there at the broadcast. Well, who's here from 519 tonight? Because we need a guest on the broadcast just to keep the general awake sometimes. And we actually reverted. We talked about it, and it was kind of funny. We were talking about St. Mary's, Darren, when you were there with Dylan, and how we were doing the interview with Spencer, and then everybody just sort of
jumped
into that interview, and I had a lot of people reach out and said they just loved that you guys were bantering back and forth like it was. I said, but that's what it is. It's a community where we all come together. I've told people, they say, well, how do you like doing that? I said, I'm not the greatest broadcaster in the world, but I love it. I said, I get to go watch hockey, and
but I think you need to have fun with it. There are serious moments. Don't get me wrong. And I'll tell you this story quickly too, that after the bronze medal game in Aurora on Sunday, I was down on the ice and Pissarro was handing the players the medals, and they were kind of going through the line to get their bronze medal. And I went over to grab Carter Lewandowski from Air because he had scored 2 goals in the game. And the next thing I knew, there was like 40 hockey sticks in the shot.
Yeah.
And it happened completely organically. And they were kind of poking him in the head and the face and doing all this stuff. And then Alex Campo from London came over. Same thing happened. And I just laughed and I just had fun with it. And you know what? Sometimes you just need to let things happen. These are kids. And I looked at it about an hour and a half ago on Instagram. That video, which is great for the league, it's great for those players, has 541,000 views.
That's awesome.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah,
but that's the stuff that makes it fun, because you never know maybe they lose that bronze medal game and everybody goes home and that's the end of the tournament. Instead, they win, they hold on in the third period, and now we've got this amazing video for the league, for those players, for those teams, for 519, for Collins Clothiers, who puts a lot of time and money into the league level sponsorship stuff. That's what I love, is that you just, when you go to work, as Brandon and I do, you basically go to work with a blank piece of paper. What's going to happen tonight? Who's going to win? And the number of times
for you, and then you basically go through it. Yep.
Right. Like Brandon and I talk anywhere between 9:40 and 10:15, depending on our games and where we are on Friday night. And I'll be like, oh, who won in Tavistock? They'll be like, I don't know. And then we'll go check the Tavistock score, the Woodstock score, whatever number of games are going on that night. And it's like, oh man, we got an OT winner in Tavistock. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Let's make sure we get that up there. Right.
Yeah. And it was funny how earlier in the show you guys were talking about you'd be driving home, say you can't get to bed for 2 hours because you're just so wound up. Mm-hmm. I find that I get that after some games where I'm just wound with sound and, have to go have a beer or two after the game just to chill out a little bit.
Honestly, it's after almost every playoff game. And we're getting into that season now where it's going to be late February to, probably late April, early May for this league anyways. And it's every night you get something crazy. You don't know what's going to happen. That's why it's so much fun.
Yeah, so. And that's why I think this weekend in Stratford could just be a wild weekend, because I don't remember the last time Stratford had 3 home games in a row on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday in town here. It's been a long time.
Brandon,
and 3 quality opponents too.
Yeah. Brandon, one thing while I'm thinking of it, can you send out a note to the group tomorrow as we talk about the playoffs? Make sure they have their batteries charged in case we're in the 4th overtime. Please.
Triple overtime, 4 overtime. There was a couple of those in Stratford last year, wasn't there, Les?
There was.
Yeah. I don't know who it was with 519 that was in Stratford this previous Friday night.
Hayden. It would have been Hayden.
Oh, it was Hayden. Okay. He comes up and he says, can I plug my camera battery? And I said, you can plug it in anywhere you want. I said, as long as you have
in the playoffs, now for sure, but in the playoffs, you just never know. You get some of these games and they could go on forever. You never know when they're going to end. So
yeah, we've had a couple of those. We had a couple of those late ones last year. And I think the longest one, the one I can remember, was probably the first year I had stepped in to do some games for Casey Kenny. And Brantford was in town.
I remember.
And we went to double overtime, late double overtime. Yeah. And Cole Lewis scored that goal.
I remember that night, Darren, because I was coming back from a Tavistock game or something, and I think I stopped in Stratford just to get there in time to see Cole Lewis being interviewed by Griffin Harris. One of our 519 guys. So.
Yeah, he scored that goal because I remember the general said he thought I was going out the window in the press box after he scored that goal, because at the time that was one of the biggest goals I had ever called. It's still one of my one of my favorite goals. Yeah, big goal. That's where he got the name from, right? He's still doing it up in Kincardine. So
yes, he is.
We have one rule with 519. You are not allowed to miss the overtime winner because you're on your phone, your battery is dead, or something has happened. Because if you don't have the overtime winner, we got nowhere to go with the video. We can't say that tied it up at 4-4 late in the third, and Stratford would go on to win 5-4. Don't think that's a super good look for 519. So we don't have a lot of like hard and fast rules, but one of them is have your batteries charged before
it's a good hard and fast rule. I don't think we've ever missed an overtime winner, so that's good.
It's the quick face-off ones that get us sometimes.
Yeah.
When it's quick off the draw like that, it's puck's in the net. Oh, okay, who scored what? Right, and you're just kind of panning around, trying to like find the player in the celly who scored the goal.
And I don't know if you guys know this, but a lot of the players love it when they get a 519 highlight. When that highlight comes out and they get it, they're all it goes through their Instagram like 90. It's
every group chat. Yeah. But that's the cool part of this time of the year though too, Les, is that everything is magnified by 10.
Yeah.
Right. So we can list Stratford Warriors goals in history of Stratford Warriors. But at this time of year, the engagement's higher, the views are higher, the excitement is higher. But what that also means on our side is we also need to be at our best.
Yeah.
And we need to have our best videographers, announcers in different spots that give us the best game also. Right. Yeah. So
because you never know when you're going to catch that goal of the year or the save of the year or something like that. You were in Stratford a couple weeks ago, Darren, and I think Q Haylock probably had the hit of the year that I've seen in Stratford a long time.
He sure did.
Like it's been a long time since I've seen a player's skates come up and hit the glass after he got hit. And, Q Haylock is a big boy. He is, you'd see him, you wouldn't think much, but he's a fair-sized young lad out there.
I have a hunch there's going to be some hits Saturday night.
Oh, I think so.
I don't make predictions. I will predict there will be some physicality hits on Saturday night between the Siskey Buzz and the Swans.
If you had to be on the bus to Elmira on Sunday, so you have a kid from California and Q Haylock, Evan Arnold from the States, and these guys, and we're going through Wallenstein just as church is getting out. So all the horse and buggies coming up the side. These were like kids in the candy store at the back of the bus. I've never seen it. Look at them all. And then you get the horse and buggy with the bus on the back end, right? And they're just, it was hilarious. I was texting his dad who's south, and he says, yeah, well, being from California, he's never seen that before.
Right.
And I said, well, he saw it all there on a Sunday afternoon going through Wallenstein.
But I bet guys like that have, new experiences all the time.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Coming in, and even just the passion for hockey in general. If you're from California, and that's not to say that San Jose isn't a hockey market, obviously, because it is. It's different here.
Yeah.
Right. It really is. And for those kids that come in from the U.S., and it's kind of like we talked about at the beginning too, even with the local guys that go to different opportunities in different leagues. We're so lucky, guys, to have what we have in terms of a league, people that care, and fans that are engaged.
Yeah.
And it's really hard in 2026 because there's so much on your phone and your iPad and Twitter and Facebook, and it's really hard to capture people's attention and keep it. And I really think that our league, I just think it shows the dedication of our league and the people that are in it that really care about it. Jason Clark's been around it forever, right? Yeah. And Nick Parr, I don't even know what year he's in as the GM now. It's not year 2, it's year 6,
4.
7.
Yeah,
that's
it.
I
think it's only 4 years up. If you get a chance at 519 Sports sometime and you're getting the Warriors coming off the bus, play close attention to Mateo Kravich and Max Wildfong.
Okay.
We have started calling them the Step Brothers. They have the same brown winter coats, long winter coats, and they had the black on the other. I said, oh my gosh, who is that? It's an ad. And then Mike Knucks there, the assistant coach for the Warriors, goes, Step Brothers. I said, that's it. That's who we're calling them now. You get so many of these kids together, and they're so, and they mesh just so easily because they have the common interest of winning on the ice. Guys, we're getting long into this podcast already. I can't believe it's been over an hour. It's just so great talking to two guys that do so much for this league, so much for the Warriors, so much for every team in this league. 519, really, you guys do an excellent job covering this. Like you said, Darren, this league we're so lucky to be involved with. It's an outstanding league, so much entertainment. And it's only going to get better for the next month and a half, 3 months, 2 months, whatever it's going to be into April. I think it's going to be
we'll hand out the Sutherland Cup on Mother's Day again, Les. That's usually how this
into
goes.
May, yeah.
It's always a Sunday night in May. Jack O'Donnell scored the Listowel winning goal in overtime on a Sunday, and we left St. Catharines last year on Mother's Day Sunday night, and Blaine Bassett hoisted the trophy. So we will be in shorts. We will not be thinking about -20.
Yeah, and I hope for a long run here in Stratford because we know how the atmosphere in Stratford picks up. When you get those 4 rows deep standing and you can't hear anything, it's always a good night. But playing in the Western Conference, you get a lot of those barns that are like that, St. Mary's, Chatham, and Elmira.
When the Avon River is thawed out, hopefully the Stratford Warriors are still playing hockey. That's all I'll say.
Well, I said if you guys win the Western Conference, you're going to have to go for a swim in the Avon because they did it after the last Cherry Cup. So
that would be good video. That would get a lot of hits.
Yeah.
Right. Them jumping into the lake with the
Sutherland Cup.
I don't know. Tim's not going to be happy about it, I would guess, but I'll try and talk to him about it.
Yeah.
We'll disinfect it. Perfect. Not about the players. All right, guys. So like I said, I'm just going to put this up. Big weekend coming here in Stratford this weekend. Friday night, Chatham Maroons in town at 7:30. General and I on the air at 7:25. Saturday, 6:30. That's 6:30, not 7:30. Waterloo Siskins come to town. That's the makeup game from the snow date before Christmas. That'll be another great game. And then Sunday afternoon, it's that Battle of Highway 7 again. St. Mary's Lincolns and the Stratford Warriors. It's just going to be a wild weekend here in town.
And you guys will Brandon and I all weekend long.
Which is great.
I'll be there on Super Bowl Sunday. Darren will be there Friday and Saturday. We can't wait either, Les.
Yeah, Super Bowl Sunday. I like Sunday because they got that chicken dinner before the game, so can't go wrong with it.
Be well fed before the game. That's good.
Joe's Diner chicken dinner. All right, guys. Darren, thank you again for doing this, and we'll see you at the rink. Brandon, as always, it's always great to see you at the rink. We'll have you up on the broadcast. Darren, we're going to get you up on the broadcast for the end of the year because the general always likes when you visit because he's still the oldest guy in the room, but
I'm up there if that's what you're asking.
Yeah,
I can reminisce about 2013 and 14 Stratford Warriors years.
Yeah, it's I every time I do a game with the general, it's always something new. And I said he's been in this for 44 years. Yeah. I always get a new comment here and there. Just a great gentleman to work with. I've been so lucky to be paired with him.
If Brandon and I are still doing this in 44 years, then we've done okay too.
Yeah.
He's an encyclopedia. Don's an encyclopedia. And, again, just another example of a good human being that works in our league, does it for the right reasons, is passionate about it. And there's a lot of guys out there like that. And I give guys like Don all the credit in the world. He doesn't need to do the Stratford Warriors radio broadcast anymore if he doesn't want to. But you know what? He cares and he wants to be there and he wants to do a good job. And he did an interview with us at the Spotlight game in Stratford this year. And it was just interesting talking to him. Like, I feel like sometimes when I talk to our guys, whether it's Brandon or Griffin or Max or Dylan or Christian, whoever it is, that I'm sort of the history buff because I've been around longer just based on the longevity of, my media career. Listening to the general speak at a microphone, fascinating.
Oh, yeah.
Just the stories from the 70s and the 80s, when I was a kid, right? And again, he's just a fascinating, good human being and nothing but respect for the general. And you're okay too, Les. You're all right.
I try. I'm still having fun. That's all that really matters.
All that matters.
I'm having fun with it every night. It's a break from the twins at home. So gets me out of the house, even though eventually I think they're going to start wanting to come down to the games, but we'll figure that out.
You'll have your intermissions filled then. Just have them on.
Well, so there was a Timbits game Saturday or Friday night in Stratford, and my twins had been playing Timbits. Well, then I had my knee operation, and Colton's decided that hockey's not his thing. he'd rather go to dance class because that's where the girls are. So, 4 years old, he's got his priorities straight, I guess, already. So all the more power to him. But hopefully, maybe we'll try hockey again next year. We'll see. All right, gentlemen. We'll see you at the rink this weekend. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to the Stratford Warriors Report.